Hello. In this video we will be introducing the control language feature of MQSCX. The first thing we need to do, of course, is start the program. And we'll issue a simple display queue command. As you might expect, MQSCX displays the definition of the queue Q1 for us. Let us compare that to run MQSC. Now MQSCX may make slightly better use of the available screen space than run MQSC, and may be a little more colourful, but otherwise it may appear at first glance to be doing the same job. However, the true power of MQSCX lies in its control language, and that is what this video is all about. If you want to be able to write scripts to control your queue manager, merely issuing a list of commands is not enough. We need to be able to interrogate the command responses. Now, some very clever people who are experts in things like awk will tell you that they can already parse the run MQSC responses. However, those scripts tend to be very long, very complicated, and almost impossible to maintain. MQSCX makes processing MQSC responses very easy to do. One of the key concepts is that each of the attributes in a response is automatically stored in what are known as response variables. We can see that in action very easily by using the print command. Here we have told MQSCX to print out the queue name. We can choose any attribute in the response. For example, print cur depth will print out the current depth of the queue. As you might expect, you can also perform arithmetic. Of course, this particular expression is not very useful. However, suppose we wanted to know what percentage of the queue was full, then we could use this command. And we can see that the queue is 40% full. So those were response variables. There are other types of variables too. System variables are variables provided by the system to the program at all times. They always start with an underscore character. There are lots of them, but we'll just demonstrate a few. For example, _OS. This is a system variable which tells you what type of operating system you're running on. _time is a variable which tells you the current time as the number of seconds since 1970. This can be very useful to calculate the ages of things or how long something has been outstanding. _command level is a variable that tells you the MQ command level of the queue manager you are currently talking to. You can even ask for the last response from the queue manager in a variable _last response. You get the idea. The third type of variable are user variables. These are variables that you can make up at any time you like and assign values to. They must always start with an @ character. So we could type the following. Variables can be of any type, strings or integers, and can even change type over time. So we could also say and of course we can also assign the response variables to our variable. So we have seen how simple it is to issue a command, and we have seen how we can assign variables. But how do we process multiple responses from a queue manager? Well, to do that we use a very useful concept called a Foreach Loop. We issue the statement like this. This statement specifies the start of a loop of commands, but MQSCX can't run the command until you tell it where the end of the loop is. You can see at the top of the screen that MQSCX says waiting for end for. Any statement now entered will run for each response to the display queue command. We'll just do something simple, like print out the queue name and max message length. But you can see that MQSCX can still not run the loop yet because you haven't told it where the end of the loop is. So we will do that now. As soon as we close the loop, MQSCX can run it for us. You can see that MQSCX correctly outputs all the names of the queues and their max message lengths. but we also see the statements that MQSCX has run for us. This can be very useful for debugging, but can be quite distracting, so we can tell MQSCX not to echo these lines. If we now run the loop again, we see a clearer display. So you can see that with the Foreach loop, it is trivial to issue a display command and then access the command server responses. Of course, there are many other language constructs that you can use, like if tests, gotos, functions, which may be the subject of future videos. But to finish with, let's consider a simple application. Suppose we wish to find out which queue has the greatest number of messages on it. We could write a script such as the following. We can see that this very simple script uses the for each statement to get a list of the queues. For each queue returned, it checks whether the current depth is greater than the previous greatest depth. If it is, then it remembers this new high watermark and the name of the queue which caused it. Once the loop completes, it then prints out its findings. To run the script, we will use the import statement. This allows you to run any predefined script. This is fine, but we can go one better and set up a synonym for this command so that we have less to type. This sets a synonym for the command and means that whenever we type the command deep, MQSCX will execute our import command. Synonyms are a very useful feature of MQSCX and can be used to simplify the issuing of any common command. For example, you could set a synonym for displaying just non-empty queues, or perhaps just channels in retry state. We could make another script, based off this one, that instead of checking the most messages, looks for the fullest queue. That is the one that is closest to its maximum depth. As before, we will run this script using an import command, and you can see that MQSCX tells us the fullest queue is actually Q2 at 82%. You can see that you can easily build up a library of useful scripts. We have only just scratched the surface of what you can do. Anything from querying the health of your queue manager, monitoring your channels, checking for naming standards, sending an email if a condition is met, setting object authorities, and so on. You are limited only by your imagination. I hope you found that a useful introduction to MQSCX Control Language, and that you can now see how the power of MQSCX allows you to easily process responses from the MQ command server without the complexity of complicated parsing scripts. Thank you for watching.